Good morning to the people that hey rescues is. You know that's just how I am. Go see the lady. Go sit on somebody's couch and talk about the things that are in the inside. My love comes with conditions. But anyway, how y'all doing? You want to talk about it? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever this podcast finds you. Welcome to another episode of Want to Talk About It, where we have real, raw conversations with people about things that they have overcame, things that have shaped them, and sometimes just plain on foolishness. It depends on the day. Today's guest is Santo Moss. So there's going to be some deep talking because this brother right here can talk. I'm just playing. He's a good friend of mine. And with talking to him, he has a story to tell and to share with the people. But before we get started, Santo, let the people know who you are.
All right. First of all, before I get started, I want to say, Meka, thanks for allowing me to speak on your platform. You reached out to me. I feel honored that you saw that it was something in me to where I would be a person of interest to come on here and speak. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak on your platform. And I watch you in the work that you do. You do good work. You know, you're gaining traction in what you do. So I really do feel honored being here. And as far as in me, I mean, it's really ain't a whole lot to say about me. My name is Santo Moss, Tuscaloosa, Alabama native, Roll Tide, and I'm an independent filmmaker right here in Tuscaloosa. And I also, you know, me, I have an extensive background and working in ministry, and I say working in ministry, working in church. And when it comes to me, I consider myself to be a Christian for the sake of the world, but as the Bible calls us, that we are believers in the way of the Most High, as far as what the Bible says. So I'm a believer. And I'm like one of those unconventional Christians. You know, I try to like take the word and make it relevant to your life. And that's as far as what my call is. But what my gift is that I do filmmaking. I consider myself to be a creative, and so that's what I do. One of the greatest things that it is to do, and you probably understand this too, Meka, is taking an idea in your head and bringing it to life in real time. It's nothing like it. That's a beauty. That's an art. And you have to be a creative in order to do that. So that's just a little bit about me.
Okay. So we tell the people that we actually working on another project together. Santo under your old business name shot a comedy special for me last summer, and his new business will shoot my comedy special this summer, and it's just my comedy special. It's me. It's just me. So when I get send your invitation, it's just gonna be me. But we are creators. We work together. We fuss and we argue a lot. Did you tell the people the name of your business?
Yeah, Take Five Studios. I don't know if you can see it in the background, but yeah, it's Take Five Studios. And what's so creative about that name, and this is the golden rule of thumbs when it comes to filming cinema, is that you shoot each scene from five different angles to make sure that you get the right shot. Take Five
Hmm,
Studios.
okay. Well, there we go. So, yes. So, if for your video needs, he's a filmmaker. What's your project you're working on now?
Well, like you said, got a couple of them. First one, we're working on your comedy special. This will be the second one that we have shot. And then the major project that I'm working on is on Bloody Tuesday. I've really been very secretive and quiet about this because I'm digging in deep with the Bloody Tuesday. Um, you know, when you talk, let me just talk a little bit about Bloody Tuesday. First of all, when you talk about Bloody Tuesday, it always starts from people marching out of the church on their way to the courthouse, and then they're met with the white, angry anti-protesters, and then that's when all the melee and the hullabaloo breaks out. But they never talked about the times before what happens that led up to the civil rights movement here in Tuscaloosa, because a lot of people know about the Bloody Tuesday, but they don't really know what kicked it off here in Tuscaloosa. We know nationally that the murder of Mamie's boy, what's his name? Having a brain fart here.
Till
And,
Emmett Till.
Emmett Till, yeah, and
Mhm.
that's what kicked it off nationally. But what kicked it off here locally in Tuscaloosa? Because here's what we know. We know about the bombings that go on in Birmingham. That's how Birmingham got the nickname during the Civil Rights Movement, Birmingham, because of all of the bombs that happened in Birmingham. But the most notable one is the one that happened at the 16th Baptist Church. Then we know about the Montgomery Boys boycott. Then we know about what happened down there in Selma on Edmonds Pettus Bridge on a Bloody Sunday. And these are all in the history books, but we never hear about Bloody Tuesday, what happened here in Tuscaloosa, and it was a significant part of the civil rights history in Alabama history and also in national history as well. So somebody has to tell that story in a very open and authentic way. So I've been working on this film since 2019, and it's not that and the reason why it's taking that long for the film to come out, because I'm always finding information that has never been out there, and we're digging really, really deep into this film, Meka. And so hopefully by 2020, by the beginning of 2026, the film will be ready to release. If not, at least by the spring.
Okay.
Hmm.
Good deal, because even with talking with you, I've learned way more than I did, because I didn't realize, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't looked, but I didn't understand the richness of what happened in Tuscaloosa as well. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm always looking forward to learning. So I'm looking forward to that, to that project coming out. So, what we came on here for today, Santo got a very interesting story. We don't know who we walking beside. We just assume that we all just skipping through life and everything went fine. So with Santo, I wanted to bring him on because I wanted him to discuss with us one of the biggest challenges he's has faced in his life. And I want him to talk about not only the challenge he faced, but how he overcame it.
All right, well, man, what to start from, Mika? Goodness, I can say one of the biggest challenges that I really, it's been so many, but what would be the biggest? It's been a lot of them. I probably say one of the biggest challenges is that but a lot of people don't know about me. I used to be homeless. I'm not talking about just homeless and you don't have your own place to stay and you just find a spot on somebody's couch, or you be roommates with somebody else. But I'm talking about I literally used to be homeless. I used to sleep out of my car. And a
Homeless
lot.
here in Tuscaloosa.
No, no, no. That's when I stayed back in Ohio. This was back
Okay.
because I so let me just kind of give you a backstory. I'm gonna try not to be too wordy. I'm just gonna hit the high points.
Okay.
I consider myself a reformed street dude. Never been a gangster, but I always been a street dude. I'm street savvy. So, that's all I just hung around. There's all the derelicts, the ghouls, the gangsters, the sleepwalkers, all of these people, who people consider to be the insignificant or the misfits. And so, but them are the kind of people that I hung around. But now understand this, I came from a two-parent household. I grew up in the church all my life. I come from good family morals and values, but sometimes, people, no matter how you raise them up, they will sometimes go astray. And it's just like what the Bible says, raise the child, and it's paraphrasing, raise the child in the way that it should go, and they will not depart from this. So
But what would attract you, with you being raised that way, what attract you to those people?
Me and my father had odds, you know, and we talked about this to this day, and we have recently made amends since I've gotten older and smarter. I'm telling you, man, I came up in a time just like most people who are 70s and 80s babies, man. Them parents, they were a different breed, boy. They were different. They still had the ways of their parents, which is our grandparents, and most of them now have died and went on to glory. Okay, so
Mhm.
um I always thought that my dad was so hard. I was always my mother's peculiar child. I always looking for that love, that affection, to be reaffirmed and things like that. And I really wasn't getting it from there. And so when I was looking for my father just to really try to affirm me, when I say affirm, just always say, son, you do a great job. Son, you always doing good. Son, I'm proud of you. And I wasn't getting all of that.
Baby, you wasn't getting that from them, because I learned
No,
stuff from my mom is
right,
past, and I'm learning how she felt about me. Stuff she never said to me, so I don't know.
right.
That's deep rooted in that generation.
Yeah, it is. And I think that this has been passed down from generation two because the grandparents weren't like that with their kids. They just something that been passed down. And I think in our generation, we are a little bit more sensitive towards those needs because now we got more education and we understand that and we can see the repercussions of what that are caused by not seeing your child's gifts, their talents, and try to nourish that and try to bring that out of them, And so, when I wasn't, getting that from my father, I was just looking like, Pops, everything I'm doing everything I can to impress you. But it was like it was never good enough. And so when I would meet these older dudes out there in the streets, they embrace me and hug you and say, "Man, I love you, little brother." And it wasn't nothing that was sexual or anything like that, but it was more that I've never seen another man just kind of hug you and embrace you like that and really showing concern about it. And so I felt that I need to show allegiance to these dudes. You know what I'm saying? They was older than me, and I was just no, I was just a teen, a young teen, just ripping around the streets and got off into selling dope and stuff like that. But I wasn't no big time dope boy, but I made enough money to where I didn't have to work a job. And I was never really a flashy kind of dude anyway, even though I had the money to do the stuff with, but that was never my thing. It was mostly just to make sure that I can get by and do what I wanted to do. But things started to take a bad turn because I started to see a lot of my peers who I was running with, they were getting locked up. Some of them died prematurely, you know. Others was getting married, others was moving out of state, some went to the military, and I just saw it just dwindling down. And then, the dudes that I was running with, I never forget this. The police had ran up on my dad one day up on the job, and they told him, "Hey, look, we looking for your son. We just waiting for him to slip up because we know he running with these dudes, and we waiting him to slip up because we gonna lock his black ass up. We gonna get him." And these were undercover agents that I ain't know I was selling dope to. They were trying to build a case on me, them secret indictments. So and
Mm-hmm.
I said, look, I got to get away, man. Stuff was just really getting bad and whatnot. So my cousin up in Ohio, she was going through a divorce at the time. And then she was telling me like she had a vacant space for me. And I was telling her like, look, man, I need to change the lifestyle, change the scenery. I want to do better, man. I want to get away from here. So I need to, police come knocking at the door, telling my dad they're going to get me and all of this stuff. And so long story short, I end up moving to Ohio. And I lived up in Cincinnati. Stayed up there probably about I was up there probably about 5, 6 years, something like that. I lose track, but I was up there for several years. And then so, while I was up there, me and my cousin, we was at odds with, and whatnot. And then so I end up, I always had a job. There's one thing about me. I always kept a job, I always kept a hustle, doing something.
Were y'all at odds because of your lifestyle or?
Well, no, we were both young, and she liked her space, and then she was dealing with some traumas herself. And
Okay.
as we got older, we talked about that. We made amends. We're better. It was never no hate or anything like that. But
Okay.
and I think that she dealt with a bad divorce, and I think that she really had some things she hasn't always healed that. And I'm thinking that when you live by yourself for so long, you tend to get selfish. It's not selfish
Yeah.
saying you don't care about other folks, but you like your space. And I think that even though
Right.
I
Like
was wrong, I was living
these
out.
cups, I put these cups on the right side. I want them on the right side. They irritate me on the left. I know.
Boy, she flipped out on me one time because I put the toilet tissue roll on the wrong end. She wanted that mother to roll back when I had it rolling forward. I mean, it was a big argument about the toilet tissue roll. I said, dang, serious? But yeah, so you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I went from there, and I was um I went and started, met a few people up there. Slept at this person's house, spent the night here, spent the night there. I had me a car to get around there. Like I said, I kept the job, but then again, I'm gonna tell you just like this, Mika. At one point in my life, it seemed like everything that I touched, no matter what it was, it crumbled. Whether I fixed something, it broke. Whether I try to have friendships and it'll fall apart. Whether I screw in a light bulb, it'll pop. I'm literally being honest. It's like my hands are like they was cursed. And so everything that I touched, that it just fell to the wayside. It just went wrong. And so it got to a point to where, things were just going bad for me in that aspect. And I just started to say, I'm just going to, to sleep out of my car and just try to make it until I'm able to save up enough money and get my own apartment and whatnot. And then so I had a job at the time. I was driving regional in the tri-state area in Cincinnati, and that consisted of Indianapolis, Louisville, Kentucky. Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, and also in Cincinnati. And so, and that was my full time job. And so, when I would get off of work, I would go and just kind of kill some time until there was time for me to go to sleep. And what I would have to do, and this was during the cold months, and what a lot of people don't know about the East Coast. Man, let me tell you something. They 50 degrees, a lot colder now. Them East Coast, well, I should say Midwest, they get real cold. Now, one thing that I liked about the Midwest, it was a blend between those in the North and those in the South. And the Midwest had that lingo and that slang and that attitude of being right in the middle. And that's what I love so much about it. And so, man, I never forget. I was sleeping out my car one time, and one of my coworkers caught me changing clothes out of my trunk on the side of the road. And this dude pulled up to me. He said, "What you doing?" I said, "Man, shoot, I'm changing clothes. I'm saying I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to go out." And he was like, "Man, you ain't gotta live like this." He said, "Come on and ride with me." And so, I rolled with him, and I was just telling him, like, "Hey, I just got a bad right now, and I'm gonna have to pull myself up out of this myself." And at the time, man, I was on drugs. I ain't talking about just smoking weed, man. I was snorting powder. And at that time, that's when ecstasy came out. And
So
and
you ain't gonna slide by it. Like, wait a minute, you taking me too bad. You're homeless. Are you homeless because of the powder and the ecstasy, or is this a byproduct of being homeless?
it's probably a byproduct of being homeless because it helped me to forget reality of what I was living in. And
Okay.
like how some people, it's almost like how some people went through some traumatizing things in their life and they find other ways to cope. Like if a person is depressed, they probably sleep all the time. If a person is stressed out, they'll binge eat. So they got comfort food. Me, I just went to the drugs. I already was smoking weed. I had started smoking weed when I was on 14 years old, getting high.
Mm.
So, and I liked it, when I was smoking weed. And now how they say that weed is a gateway drug, that's a true statement. Weed is a gateway drug, and it's not saying that if you smoke weed, you're gonna do heavier drugs. But what it's saying is due to the fact that you smoked it, it opened you up for other opportunities to
But also, do you think it's because you started so young is why it was a gateway? Because you're talking about an undeveloped mind.
yeah.
Your core things have not been produced as far as your brain. Do you think that made a huge difference as well?
Oh yeah, hey, listen, when the older bros embraced me, they was around us sitting getting high like they was having a good time. So I wanted to try it. Someone tried to advise me not to try it. I wanted to see what the big talk was about. And they went from there to smoking weed, then smoking cigarettes. I don't do the stuff now, but and it just led to other things because I was trying to be cool and hang out. Just most how young black teens my age do, or just young men that age do. There wasn't no peer pressure with me because I always had my own mind and would just think for myself. And so, and when I like, and going back to when I was in Ohio, being homeless and whatnot, there was a way for me to escape the reality that I was living in. And so when I was high, I felt good about myself. It made me take my mind off the pain, all the troubles, what I was going through. I would get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, going to gas station, shaving my face and taking a bath in the sink, washed up under my arms. So and I would go at that time. So I want nobody would be in the gas station at that time. So they wouldn't catch me. Nobody who I would run into that know me would catch me going in there, changing clothes in the bathroom. Like I don't know if you remember that Will Smith movie that he did, The Pursuit of Happiness, how him and his son was sleeping in the bathroom and he had to play this game with his son to get his mind off the reality that there was actually poor. And so when he was sleeping in the bathroom on the floor, you remember somebody was trying to come in the bathroom and he was trying to block them from coming in. I understand what that feels like. People knocking on the door and I've been there 30 minutes or so, and they trying to get in and use the bathroom, and I'm in here getting ready for the next day, or that day, I should say. And so, and I never forget, Mika, I would be sitting there, getting high, how powder, how weed, how on these pills, because during that time, that's when there was an epidemic of ecstasy when it first came out. And one of the main routes that it came through was right there on the Ohio River, because the Ohio River, if you look at it, all the the river run all the way down through Mississippi, so it just made its way from the Midwest all the way down through the South. And so Ohio would be like one of the first stops. And before making to the South, the drugs back then, and it's even like that now, are very potent. Because by the time it made it to the South, it got cut too many times. When I say cut, is that people put stuff in it to expand the product to make a bigger amount of it, but it makes the product less potent. So I called it when it
Yes.
was
So
fresh.
you're saying you were getting the purest form
Boy,
of
I'm
it when
talking
you
about
got.
I would eat a corner of that peel, and boy, it was a love potion. I'm talking about listen.
I
Listen.
take
I
your
was
word
snoring
for
powder so much. I'm talking about boy. I'm talking about I can feel the back of my head getting numb. And and I remember I would be sitting there, and what I would do, because I always had a fear of being robbed, and so I would sleep downtown or in between two tight buildings where I can back into it, so that way the buildings would be so tight. If you understand that in some of these major cities, the buildings are real close and they going straight up, so I would back into the back of there, so that way I couldn't get out and nobody could get in. I could see anything come in front of me and behind me. And so I did that throughout the winter, man, for months. And it was, I mean, them winters get cold, real cold. And I would have to start my car up to make it run so I can keep the heat going in the
it.
car. And had to wake up periodically to make sure nobody was watching me. And I'll never forget, man, I would be sitting there, Mika, I would be praying to God, crying myself to sleep that he would just kill me so I wouldn't wake up. So I would have to wake up to this lifestyle and live it all over again. And to be honest, I actually got turned out being on powder by hanging around with this one woman, real beautiful girl, and she put me on to it. And like I say, I was just out in the streets, they had nowhere to go. So then she told me like, hey, why don't you try this with us? And so her and one of her other girlfriends was there, and they introduced me to it, and that's how I got hooked on it from there. And so with me being hooked on it, it really wasn't a thing to where it had like a major hand or an addiction on it. It was more like a hustle drug to me, because if you know anything about, if you watch a lot of the old black exploitation films with all the Mag and Superfly, a lot of them had snorted powder, and it helped them to stay up and stay alert. And that's what it did for me, because I had got up, and I said I couldn't sleep all the time. I would be up most of the time, and the next day going to work, I'd be dragging. And so I never forget, man. I slept on this one girl couch. She let me sleep there, and she let me sleep there one night. And we did our thing, and she went to sleep. And so when she went to sleep, I had rummaged through her stuff, and I was looking through her stuff, and I wasn't looking for like no money or anything. I'm more in survival mode, looking for stuff that could sustain me while I'm out on the streets. And she had an old 357. So I took the old, no, I'm sorry, not 357, a 38. And so she had a 38 revolver. So I stole her revolver. And I stole her revolver, and the next morning, I told her I was going to work and I wasn't gonna be back tonight. And then so that night I sat there and I was snoring powder and I was thinking. And hold on a second, Meek.
Okay.
There, and man, I was just so miserable and disgusted, and I was snorting powder. And I said, man, I need to get some money because I'm tired of living in my car. It's cold out here. I'm talking about it's cold like -12,
Quick,
-14,
quick,
-1.
quick question though.
Yes.
You just said you had a great support system, and you can finish that thought, but I want you to explain to the people why you just didn't run home. You ain't got to live in your car. So finish that and then tell the people why you stayed.
Okay, I get that question all the time. Why to say why you got a good support system at home? Why would you not go back home? Because what kind of problems would I been bringing home? I had a drug problem. I had anger issues. I didn't want to take that back to my parents' house. So before I go back, I left in the right way, and I want to come back in the right way. And so I wasn't going to be kind of bringing that stuff to them. I wasn't going to do that. So that's why I
I
didn't
hear
go
that.
back home, because you got to think about it.
But finish your story. I'm sorry I
Oh, no, you good
interrupted
now.
you.
You ain't interrupt. No, it goes right along with it, because that's gonna lead me right into what I'm about to say. And so with all
Hmm.
these issues and problems that I was having, I was sitting there thinking that night, like, how can I come up and try to get some money? So I started thinking, I said, man, I can rob dope boys, rob some of these jokers on the corner. And so, and I had this thing in my head, they can't call the police. They weren't gonna fight me because I got a gun. So what they gonna tell the police? Oh man, this not just got robbed. What they take from you, sir? What they gonna tell me? I took your dope. So I started robbing dope boys, and I robbed enough of them until I got enough money to save up to get my first apartment. And then so once I got my first apartment, I was somewhat stable. And once I got stable, then I started to build from there. But I still, had a drug issue. And with these drug issues, I think what a lot of people don't understand that when you're dealing with heavy drugs and stuff like that, it really opens you up to other dimensions in the spirit world. A lot of people don't know that. And I'm the first one that can tell you that they may not want to accept that, but it does. I never forget, I used to work in ministry at the church. I mean, real heavy in ministry and also being a creative as well, too. You meet a lot of different, unique, and diverse people. And I never forget a real good sister of mine in the faith would tell me, like they think there are a lot of people that's out here talking to themselves are crazy, but some of them are not. Sometimes you can get a hold to a bad batch of weed or somebody sprayed it or laced it with something and it'll take a twist in your mind. I'm just lucky I never had that. But going back to what I was saying, some people really do have spiritual gifts and they never homed in on it and they never had someone who can understand the spiritual world to help tame that, to understand what are these visions, what are these dreams, what it is they discerning, what they're discerning and what they're feeling. And they don't know how to deal with it. So a lot of them turn to like alcohol and drugs and stuff to try to silence their gifts, what's going on. They really do. And I had really found that out when I was homeless in the streets because I ran to a lot of people that when they're sober, they will be talking about things that I really could relate to and understand. And it wasn't over the top for me. And actually, these people were far advanced and ahead of their time. I mean, years ahead of their time. And so, and I bring it up to say that, like, sometimes, you got people that really didn't come from a bad place. They just didn't know how to harbor and really home in and wield their spiritual gifts. Because I have ran across people like that.
Okay. Now, okay, let's get back to you got the apartment, you
Yep.
still doing drugs. How long is this time period?
I say probably about 2 or 3 years. It was about 2 or 3 years when before I really got I can't and it was really nothing that dramatic that happened to make me want to stop. I just really came to a point to where that I really need to try to get myself together so I can have a better quality of living. Because a lot of people don't know this because I'm a high school dropout. I never finished high school. I feel like I'm the least of them. I knew in the sixth grade I was going to drop out of school. It was too much of work. It was too hard. I couldn't stand some of the folks there. I ain't like all some of these loud ass teachers talking and stuff. I was just sick of it. I said I knew it's too much work. You shouldn't be. I was saying to them. I was in my mentality. I was like, man, you shouldn't be giving a kid all this kind of work, man. I got homework in every class. I didn't want to do all of that. But see, here's the thing about it though. I wasn't a dumb kid though, Mika. I was actually smart. I just didn't want to do the work. I mean, I knew that, man. Look, as soon as I was able to get up out of school, I got out of it. I ain't gonna lie, I left. And so it stayed with me for go back to what you were saying to your question. I stayed like that for a few years, and I said I really got to get myself together. Go and get my GED, try to get a better quality of living because all the things that I did to lead up to that, me being on drugs was a reminder of my failure. Because let me tell you why. I would be sitting there, being at a party somewhere, being at the club, smoking weed, getting high, tooting over in the corner in the back of the club, acting like I'm having a good time. And I would just kind of go into a daze and a deep thought, and I'll be going through my mind of the horrible lifestyle that I was living in. And I'm acting like I'm having a good time, but inside I was just dying. So I said, I really gotta, you know, turn my life around and do something better. Because at certain jobs I couldn't go for because, I didn't have no education. On paper, I didn't have no education. And that was a reminder of my failure. And this dope was reminding me of that. So I just really started make some positive changes and start wanting to elevate my life.
Do you think those positive changes are only do you think your upbringing helped you come back to yourself?
Yeah,
Like
it did. It did. I can't say that because even right now, man, I'm always hearing my grandparents' voices in my head because people always told me I'm sound like I'm just old anyway. My ways are old. I don't care. I know it. So I don't care. I always tell them what the old folk be saying because when I was out there, doing the stuff that I was doing when I was real bad on the stuff, drinking alcohol. I mean, I would drink myself into a stupor till I wake up the next morning, didn't know what happened. I had to watch the news to make sure there wasn't no hit and run. And I can hear my grandparents and my parents' voice in my head saying, "Boy, listen here, if you don't cut out all this stuff you doing, you're gonna end up dead or in jail, open up your eyes in hell somewhere." So yeah, it
mm,
plays a part because a lot of times we think that these kids don't be listening to us, but they do. And when they get grown and you sit down and talk to them, they'll tell you stuff that you told them that stuck with them when they were 7, 8 years old.
mm. And another thing I wanted to touch on, so with you dropping out of school, even though you didn't like school, it still made you feel inadequate and there are some things you couldn't do. What did you do to get over that inadequacies? What did you do as far as like schooling or getting yourself trained? Because what you didn't tell the people, you told the people about your business, but what is it that you do for a living, your profession?
Okay, you want how did I come? How did I come to my calling of filmmaking? That's what you're asking. I,
Not the filmmaking necessarily.
all right.
We can go by way, but how did you get into IT?
Oh,
Because
big-
IT pay the bills.
yeah,
Filmmaking gonna get you rich one day, but
yeah,
right now IT pay
yeah.
the bills. How did you
Well,
go from dropping out of school to now being in
yeah,
IT?
yeah. Well, everything that I had ever done, I never went to school before I was self-taught. I started off working in construction. From my great granddad to my granddad to my dad, all of these men were technical guys. It's just God just put something in the bloodline of me where he just gave us common sense on how to reason with things and look at it and have comprehension on how it works. So as long as I knew how to read and write and knew my math, that I can do anything because I was always a reader. I do that now. I mean, I don't know if you can see behind me, but I got books and stuff all behind me because I don't watch a lot of TV. I ain't
Mhm,
I've been at home since about 5 o'clock. I ain't turned on the TV yet. I don't watch a lot of TV. When I do watch it, it's a good sci-fi or a documentary film. A lot of people don't like those genres, but it fascinates me. So, going to saying how I get into IT, I started off in the doing electrical. My dad has his own electrical company, and I started working with him when I was 12 years old. So that was really my first real job that I had, learning how to do electrical work. And so when I started doing electrical work, I I got my GED and then I went to Shelton. I had moved back here from Ohio. I moved back here, got myself together, got sober and whatnot, and I enrolled myself into Shelton State. And a lot of people don't know Shelton State's HBCU. That's why I got my shirt on now. Yeah, Shelton State is a certified HBCU. Small HBCU, but it's HBCU. And so um when I got into Shelton State, I took my GED. Then I said I want to go ahead and get my journeyman's electrician. Hopefully, one day take over the business, but the family business. But it didn't go that way because that was one of the main reasons for me coming back to Tuscaloosa was to take over the family business. All right, and so went to Shelton, and I never forget I took this class called Electronics for Electrician, and basically it was talking about components of the computer and how electricity and IT are very similar. One is just high voltage, and one is a very, very, very low voltage. And one works by a frequency, and the other one works off of binary numbers because numbers only go from 0 to 9. So I started finding all this stuff very fascinating how they relate to each other. And I started learning about transistors and resistors and capacitors, and motherboards and hard drives and PLCs and electrical rung and all these things. And it was really fascinating me. So I met a guy in there named Keith Crowley that was in in my electrical class, and he worked in the IT field. And I told him, we talked, and we got real cool. And he told me that he worked in the Shelton State IT department. And I said, I'm interested, want to learn more about IT work. And so he got me on there as a work study. They like the work that I do. And Meka, the rest is history. Never went to school for it, never had certifications. I always taught myself and took a few what they would call not personal development, but job training to kind of, because technology is always training. So you got to stay ahead of what's going on. And so that's how I got into it.
Well, look at God.
Yeah, look at God.
Look at God.
Yeah,
But yeah, so with that being said,
yeah,
we went over a lot. What is it, somebody that's watching this that may be, because we don't know. People be walking around all the time and we don't know the hurt. It ain't got to be drugs. It could be alcohol. It could be a person that you're addicted to, any type of addiction. What advice would you give them to try to come to? I mean, because I know everybody path is different.
yeah.
But what advice would you give someone who is struggling? Because most of the time when we struggle, it's because we don't have no direction or we don't know what our purpose in life. What would be the advice you would give?
Therapy. Know who you are. Know what your gifts and talents are. Try to be the best person that you can be, and really get with somebody who's an empath that truly understands. And when I say an empath, I'm not talking about showing sympathy, because a lot of people think that having sympathy from someone and having empathy are the same, and they're really not synonymous at all. They're far from it. Sympathy is more saying like, yeah, you going through this,
Oh,
uh,
po thing,
whole thing.
po thing.
There's somebody else going through something worse than you, so you should just count your
Right.
blessings. And to me, that's a very offensive statement. While an
Yeah.
empath says that, Meka, I don't know why you told me this. I'm glad that you told me. I understand what you're going through, and what can I do to help? And I'm gonna be there with you 100% of the way until you get through with this. That's the big difference
Yeah.
in its short
My
form.
grandmama used to always tell me, don't waste your time being sorry for nobody. Don't nobody need that energy.
No,
Can you help them, or can you show them how to be helped? Other
exactly.
than that, you're not doing them no good. Just be like, and I know people look at me sometimes because I always tell people, I always, Karen and I talk about this all the time. This is not my assignment because I will take on things that ain't mine. And so I have had to learn how to pray about it. Like I hear people stuff and I be like, oh, I want to help them. Pray about it. It's not my assignment. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
if I can't make the situation better, all I can tell you, baby, I'll pray for you. And these are some resources
Yeah.
that you can use. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's not the fact that you're heartless. You just don't have. You shouldn't have the capacity of feeling sorry for people because nobody doesn't need your feeling sorry for them. They need either your help or you to guide them or your prayers. But
Yeah.
trying to convince them that their situation is not dire. Because just like you, I know I'm pretty sure people were telling you, "Oh, you can just go home," and and people don't understand. I don't want to take this bull to my parents,
Hmm.
and that shows how much love and respect that you have for your parents. Because again, you were raised right. You know,
Yeah.
we don't always get everything we want out of our parents, and that's why we have these different people in our life.
Mm.
That's why we have our support system. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, your support system needed a support system.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about, man. Listen, man, I'm telling you, man. I was down in the dirt, man. I mean, that was a dark, a really, really, really dark point in my life. I'm talking. I had major anger issues, and then, and a lot of people don't know this is that I was into the martial arts real heavy, and I used to teach martial arts, and it helped as well because it helped me to have a peace and a calm about myself, and really had to teach me how to hone those emotions as a man, because we as men, when we get mad, somebody gonna end up dying. There's gonna be some bloodshed, somebody gonna get knocked out, you going to jail, something happens. So we as men have to learn how to contain that, because we're like men, we have the capacity to destroy and kill things with our hands. God put that in us, and it shouldn't be used for bad. So when I was working in youth ministry and going up to these turnaround programs, is what we used to call reformatory schools, but they think that that is such a derogatory name now. But I call it for what it is. These some at risk youth, they're troubled youth. And I would tell them, being a man is not just jumping bad at somebody, being overly aggressive, thinking that you gotta demand this kind of respect. All it is just saying that you give the respect that's due, you stand on your square, and you mean what you say, and you don't deviate away with that. And you also have love for what you do, and also have a peaceful and calm mind, and it will help guide you around obstacles and trouble so that you can avoid all of the consequences for your actions, because there are a lot of young men right now that are locked up in prison doing football numbers, all because they didn't know how to contain their emotions. And it's that one split second their whole life has changed. And I try to.
And
Mhm.
listen,
No.
I was gonna say, and not to blame, because the blame is always on us.
Yes.
So I'm not trying to place the blame. But when you said you had anger
Mhm.
issues, what were the anger issues stemming from, and what do you think, in your opinion? We can't rewrite history,
Mhm.
but what is it, in your opinion, you felt like would have shifted, um, or changed you not to go down the path that you went down? This is for a parent that may be having
Um,
issues.
you said what brought about these anger issues?
Uh huh.
Oh, we got hoping you would ask that.
Sorry.
Um, I never forget this. Hold on 1 second, me. 1 second. You ain't gotta pause it. Just hold it. Don't worry, I ain't going nowhere and cry. I'm a thug. I don't. No, no. Check it out. I know. Let me start from here. I went to a community church. From age 0 all the way up until 4 till it was time for me to go to regular school, right? And
Mhm.
so, um, it was at the church that I grew up in, and they had their own educational center. And so, a lot me and my family, all of our cousins, we went there. And I didn't even realize just how smart of a kid I was, because when I went to public school, it dumbed me down. I was looking at these kids, I was looking at them, they couldn't sit still, they couldn't count their numbers, they didn't really know their colors, they couldn't write. And I'm sitting there Indian style waiting for the class to start. And I'm looking at these kids, they running out chasing their mamas because they wasn't used to being around other kids, because they've been at home with their mama the whole time. And then they weren't getting a teaching like I was getting. And I was saying to myself, like, boy, these some dumbass kids. What are these running around here? At nap time, I wouldn't really sleep like that. I'll be up, and that was telling my mom, he won't go to sleep, because we'll have our little cookies and juice. We'll sleep for a little bit. We was in preschool, but I was up in the corner doing other activities. So it actually dumbed me down, because the other kids had to catch up to my level. Because I remember being in the third grade, and I was reading on the eighth grade level in the third grade. And so by the
Mhm.
time I got to third grade, man, I don't know, I just started acting out. That's when, when the change started to take effect, start hanging around some of the wrong kids at school. And like I said, went back to where I was looking to be affirmed by my father. I don't now, now understand this. I don't blame my parents for what happened to me, because they did the best that they could do and the best of their
Mhm.
ability, because we do our parents a disservice as children when we go back and say what they did not do, and we're not going to raise our kids. We're not going to raise our kids like how our parents raised us. And our parents did a good job because we turned out all right. We got career jobs, we got the big house. We got the nice cars. We're doing good. And when we tell our parents that, we hurt their hearts, it put a bad place in them. And that, even though they may not show it, but it hurts the parent. They go somewhere secretly and cry. And, and we don't want to do that you don't want to do that to your parents, because we understand now that we have kids. It don't come with a blueprint. It doesn't.
Oh no,
Come with a
it
blueprint.
doesn't,
Yeah,
and that's why I said to explain your anger
right.
issues,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you don't know, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because you're looking at it from one
Mm-hmm.
vantage point. And unfortunately, it doesn't come with a guidebook. And even the books that come out, they don't know your child.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they don't know your child.
Right. Every relationship, every family is tailor made. Everyone is tailor made.
Right.
There's no blueprint to it. Everybody person that is different. You mix them with somebody else. And then so my father, going back to what we were saying, my dad, he was the kind of person back then, they believe in beating it up out of you. You know what I'm saying? They believe in beating it
Mm.
up out of you. That's the way it done. Spare the rod, spare the rod, you spoil the child. But there's a deeper meaning behind that. And so I never forget this, man. My daddy told me he was gonna come up. I was in the third grade. He said that he was gonna come up there and he was going to whoop me in front of my class in the third grade. And boy, I'm talking about I was scared all that damn day, boy. I'm talking about I was like, damn, my daddy gonna come up here. Man, he came up here. I'm talking about Mika. That joker beat me with one of these wires you see on the telegram pole. Look, he electrician. So he came with one of these. Well, I'm talking about this stuff didn't give a bend. Man, when I say my daddy beat me unmerciful, he beat me to exhaustion. I mean, he beat me in front of my classmates, beat me in front of the girl that I like. Beat me bad. He beat me so bad in front of my class, he was hitting on me, and I just laid there. Couldn't even move. I was that exhausted. And my classmates was quiet and they looked at me and they felt sorry if I could see it in their eyes. And I was quiet for about 3 weeks in the class. And I remember when I was sitting there after he got through beating me, I felt this anger just set in me. I don't know what opened up in me, and it stayed there up until I moved back home from Ohio. I mean, it stayed. I mean, Meek, it was an anger that I never felt before. I mean, it was.
Because you were humiliated. I mean, I'm
I
pretty
was
sure you were
humiliated,
humiliated.
humiliated.
I can't even say the word.
Yeah,
You were embarrassed. I can't even say the damn
embarrassed.
word. Talk
Yeah, I was hurt. I'm looking at these bruises on me. I'm breathing hard, my eyes red. I sat in that corner all day, didn't do no class work, didn't do nothing. Nobody said nothing to me, just an embarrassment. And all I really wanted was just to be affirmed by my dad. That's all it was. The acting out was to get his attention. That's all it was. But as a child, I did not know how to articulate what I was feeling, so I acted out.
Mm-hmm.
And his remedy was to beat the hell out of you, you know. And as an adult, I had to go seek therapy about that. As an adult, dealing with a hurt child from in the third grade. And we talked about it here recently within like the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, I'm serious about the last 2 or 3 years about that. And my father came to me and he told me everything about, what he was feeling, the reason why he did that, because of what he went through as a child. Because he was an outcast, he was a slow child. My dad didn't start walking until he was 5 years old because they thought that he was a lost cause. They thought that he was slow. They thought that he was back then called retarded, for lack of better words, and that he was raised by his grandparents because his mama left him. They didn't want him. His mama didn't want him. His grandparents didn't want him. They beat him unmercifully. And so as that trauma was passed down to me. And we didn't talk about this until I became older, and he apologized for what he had did. And he had so much regret and remorse for it because now, as parents, as they're getting our parents are getting older up in their 70s and their 80s, they become a little bit more reserved in their age. And so they're reflecting back on their lives. And so when we talked about that, and so I never forget, I wrote a letter. My therapist told me to write a letter to your parents, not to tell them all the bad things that they did, but what the hurt that you experienced through that. Wrote that letter. I gave it to my moms and gave it to my dad. They read it, and we have had the best relationship to them. They have been very open about the things that happen in our household. I mean, because even though the household was it was two parents, but yet it's still, what is it when you still have a parent that seemed to be absent? you know. And there was a
Mm.
lot of stuff that were going in the household that I care not to talk about and explain. But I think that father,
I got you.
yeah, I think that fathers really, really, I don't say I think they play a very important role in a child's life because it's that father's voice. that affirms the child. It's that father's voice that lay out the roadmap for his children. It's that father's voice that have the plan. It's that father's voice that actually set out, the vision for the family. Because even when the dad ain't there, the mama can always go back to that male child and say, "Boy, didn't your daddy tell you not to do that? I'm gonna tell him when you get home," and you will see the child straighten out if that father's an active dad in the household. So yeah, that's what I went through. That's where that anger come from, and it really took some time for me to get over that, and that hurt and that pain stayed there because the little Santo did not heal. And I'm named after my dad. I'm not a junior because I don't have a middle name. And I was named after my dad. And I used to hate when people would call me because my name is Larry Moss, Larry Santo Moss. And people would call me Larry, and I would hate that name because it reminded me of him. And I hated that dude. I hated him. I hated him, Mika.
Mm,
I hate him. I used to wish death upon him. I used to have thoughts of wanting to try to find a way where I can get rid of him and it would not be traced back to me. That hate led to me being suicidal. That hate led to me wanting to try to drink away the pains. That hate led to me making irrational choices. That hate led to me getting messed up relationships. All because I had that hate and I didn't want to try to think clearly. And my dad did the best that he did and tried to do what he known to do. And when really both of us were both hurt little boys. And he's grown and I'm
mm,
grown. And we had to talk about that
mm,
as we got older, because the Bible talks about that some people in the family, I'm just paraphrasing, that some peoples in the family need to be a repairer of the breach. And I feel that I was that repairer of
mm,
the breach because now I have a better relationship with my sister, better relationship with my mother, better relationship with my dad, better relationship with family, work, and everything else. And then now everything that I touch, it prospers. Everything that I touch, it prospers now. No matter what I put my hand on, it prospers. Because like I told you earlier, everything I was touching, it was just dissolve and disintegrate no matter what it was. So I hope that I know it was kind of wordy, but that's the
oh,
spirit to it.
you know, that's it.
Mhm.
Well, I really truly appreciate you for being vulnerable and transparent. I always pray over all these podcast episodes that it helps somebody. I don't care if it don't help but one person. But people like you that are willing to share those stories, because I got a lot out of it. I always tell people a lot of us still walk around here skipping, dealing with stuff from childhood. We don't even realize why we acting the way we
Yeah.
acting. But one thing I do take away from this is forgiveness, not only of yourself, but of the people that you felt had transgression, understanding of things, because just because you wouldn't do that because of the therapy and the help and the fact you didn't like it, that's all they knew. And so it's forgiveness, understanding, and getting yourself some help.
And
So
go
we
with you
have the man that is in front of us. Huh?
and going what you're saying, my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off, but going what you're saying
Are
about
you
forgiveness, I had a near death experience, but I'm not going to get into all of that. But I remember coming back from the other side when I came back here. It was two things that's keeping us disconnected from God and our purpose on what we supposed to be doing in life, what we're called to do. And that's fear on two things, and that's fear and unforgiveness. Those are only two things, nothing else. That's it. So you're right about what you're saying. Unforgiveness run deep, very deep.
Yeah, because a lot of us don't look at it. Sometimes I have forgiven people that don't deserve to be forgiven, but that's for me because I don't want to carry that with
Yeah.
me. These folks around here living their life happily, skipping because they don't care, and I'm around here losing sleep, hurting myself because of something that they did. So yeah,
Yeah. And
so I do appreciate you.
and Mika, I
Hmm?
hope I want to apologize. I don't know what the language tone is on your podcast because I've been using some cuss.
Oh, it's 18 or older, baby, because you know I cuss like a sailor,
But
and I try to keep it real cute and professional, but I get to cuss.
yeah, but I had sometimes it's good to stress an exclamation point to get your point across so that the people in the back
Yeah.
can hear you. You know what I'm saying? So
But yeah, the people I get, it's never over gratuitous. It's gonna be some cuss words. It ain't
yeah,
gonna be a Def Comedy Jam, but it will be
yeah,
some cuss
yeah.
words.
And
But I appreciate everybody that tunes in tonight. Again, I appreciate Santo. Do you have any closing words?
yeah, I do, Mick. I have some closing words. Once again, I want to say thank you for allowing me to come on your platform. And I hope that this reaches out to someone that it appeals their heart, so maybe it can help them And I also want to give you a flower while you're alive. I watch what you do. Meka, you're doing good. We've been rocking together for many, many, many moons. Many moons. People don't know behind the scene what goes on with us going back and forth. You cuss me out. And a lot of folks don't know that Meka punched me in my chest one time in the sanctuary of the church, but she in denial about that. That joker punched me in front of everybody. I was looking like, man, did a mosquito bite me or something? What was that? But I thought it was funny. She was mad. I can't remember what it was about. Now it's been so long ago. But I just want to say you're gonna be. You can mark my word for this, and you hear from me first. You're going to go way beyond where your comedy career is at now. Because I can see you being in front of the big screen. I see you being real good in what you're doing. I see you going on a national platform, maybe international. But I see your rise. I'm a creative. I recognize talent. I'm a talent scout myself. I know it. I can see it. So I just want to go ahead and just congratulate you on all the things that you are doing because you're going to go way beyond this comedy. You may not know that yet, but you're going to go way beyond this. So you just keep doing what you're doing. Don't get discouraged. I know it gets hard. I know it's a struggle. I know it takes money. I know it takes people trying to help out. But when you're doing the lead work under the true people who are in your corner, that are your troopers, are going to help you to help push through this. So I just wanted to say that I'm really proud of you and the work that you're doing. And I see you doing really great things. And I seeing you now. If it don't be a household name, Meka, I see it's gonna be somewhere you being famous. I see that. I really do. I see that, and I know it's coming. So you just be patient because it's coming.
Well, I thank
Yeah, you more than
I
welcome.
thank you. All right. Well, y'all have a good evening, afternoon, or morning. See you next time.